What is going on, Tentacrew? My name is Billy the Squid, and I hope for the love of all things that are good in the gaming world that Sony does not purchase FromSoftware anytime soon, or at all, if my opinion has anything to do about it. How are y'all doing? Yes, this is a conversation that is actually being brought up recently due to a few interesting interactions between Sony game studios and FromSoftware themselves. It started off with an exclusive Sony interview with Mr. Miyazaki, where they go through some of the Elden Ring stuff. It's this typical PR stuff, but it is interesting that Sony specifically is getting an interview with Mr. Miyazaki. To compound onto this and to keep this hype train rolling, Sony has also asked a bunch of their Sony Studios people, Naughty Dog, Insomniac, and stuff, what their favorite FromSoftware bosses are in a little article that's also supposed to kind of spin up the Elden Ring hype wheels. But what it actually sped up was the speculation that potentially Sony was eyeballing FromSoftware Studios for its next big purchase. And I'm going to kind of break down my thoughts on it and why I don't think this is the case and why I think this would be a bad move for FromSoftware and the Souls-like genre in general. And I'm just going to go ahead and address it right now. I am not some sort of Xbox shill out here trying to talk down on Sony Studios. That is not my intention. If anything, I am the opposite. I am what a Xbox fanboy would consider a Sony fanboy. I have bots from the PS1 all the way up to the most recent PS5, exclusively Sony products, not because I am a Sony fanboy, but because I just find those games more something that I vibe with. Maybe it was because my childhood upbringing, I preferred solo story-based games. Maybe it was my social isolation that led me to this, but the Xbox never really appealed to me because it always struck me as more of the PvP multiplayer platform, and that just wasn't the kind of gaming that I wanted to get myself into. So I would be what one would say a Sony enjoyer. That being said, being a Sony enjoyer, I am fully capable of admitting that Sony hasn't had the most consumer-friendly practices in the past, so keep all your Sony fanboyisms away from my comments section or leave them there. I don't really care, but this is my stance on things, and this is the mindset I am going to take moving forward in this conversation. So given the interviews, the articles, and the overall friendliness between Sony and FromSoftware, it is very easy to see where there is a potential of Sony just absorbing FromSoftware into Sony Studios. It's also worth pointing out that Sony has recently made a capital alliance with Kadokawa Studios, who owns FromSoftware as of right now, in a three-way agreement between Sony, Kadokawa Studios, and Cyber Agents, which is a studio that owns Kai Gaming. They own the rights to the Grand Blue series, as well as worked with Zone of the Enders with Konami. So this is another tie that Sony has with FromSoftware, but I don't know if this one in particular makes them more likely to be able to acquire FromSoftware as an asset or less likely, since they are in a financial capital alliance with FromSoftware's current owners. Sony is well aware of the value of a FromSoftware title. They have seen it time and time again in the console wars specifically, that a good Sony title is enough to sell consoles to a large chunk of the fan base. They saw it with Bloodborne, and they've seen it most recently with the Demon's Souls remake. And while that was made by Bluepoint, it was still the base product of FromSoftware, just with that Bluepoint polish going forward. And both of those were very much pivotal in selling the consoles that they were respectively put out on. FromSoftware is good friends with Bandai Namco. They have done business with Sony in the past. They've also done business with Activision on Sekiro. But the way that they tend to do their business with publishers is they give the publisher full rights to the game franchises that they are developing for them, with the exception being the Sekiro Activision purchase. That was something that FromSoftware did keep to themselves, but everything else tends to go the way of the publisher, whether it be Bloodborne or Demon's Souls with Sony, or Bandai Namco with the Souls games and Elden Ring moving forward. And while this might not seem like that big of a deal, if Sony were to purchase up FromSoftware, that would disintegrate any prior relations to other publishing studios that FromSoftware has worked with, specifically Bandai Namco. I could possibly see Sony buying up Bandai Namco before I see them purchasing FromSoftware, because if they just purchase up FromSoftware, they just get the development studio. If they purchase up Bandai Namco, they get the Dark Souls series and Elden Ring moving forward. They have actual IPs that, if for whatever reason Sony wanted to start doing an online marketplace or a PC marketplace that is set to compete with Xbox Game Pass, they would need IPs to go onto that platform. And just purchasing up FromSoftware does not meet that need. Yes, they would have an amazing development studio and probably producing rights on every FromSoftware game moving forward, but they would not have IPs to kind of push into that PC-centric mindset or that subscription-based mindset that the gaming system seems to really be gravitating towards, since it is, in a lot of ways, a much more consumer-friendly way of doing gaming. This is, of course, assuming that Sony is going in this direction with the way that they're wanting to do their gaming studios and not just wanting to have development studios that have exclusivity in mind. This could very well be the case. Sony kind of stuck in the same ways that like Nintendo is stuck, where they're kind of just off in the corner doing their own thing and letting Xbox and lets Xbox have like that mass subscription basis be their niche of gaming. But even in that case, I don't see the FromSoftware purchase being enough for FromSoftware specifically. I don't know what kind of a deal Sony would give. I know the financial backing for FromSoftware products would be beneficial, but if we look at the big purchases that have been made in the past, both from the Xbox side of things as well as the PS side of things, these are studios that, as far as Sony goes, have been almost exclusively making Sony products for a few different generations now. And on the Xbox side of things, they have been absorbing kind of on the decline studios. And the hope is that through them purchasing these studios, they can kind of bring them back up to their former glory. You've seen it with the Bethesda and now with the Activision Blizzard purchase. The kind of one that throws a wrench in this mindset, though, is the Bungie purchase. And while Sony has recently purchased Bungie, and I don't think anybody would consider Bungie a declining company, they are a company that really has only one game to their name as of right now. Yes, Bungie has a big, long line of past titles that they've worked on, and maybe some of those titles can get resurrected with this Sony purchase. But as of right now, PlayStation just kind of bought Bungie for Destiny 2. And while Destiny 2 has already been kind of ingrained into the PlayStation infrastructure, having console-specific exclusives with that game, I don't think it itself was enough to warrant the Bungie purchase. I genuinely think Sony is interested in bringing back some of Bungie's past IPs. Obviously not Halo, because that got sold off, but it's a good move, in my opinion. It also marks the first game studio that Sony has purchased recently that wasn't a pretty well Sony exclusive making company. Bungie is a big multi-platform company, and it seems like Sony is okay with Bungie staying a multi-platform company. At least that's what the PR releases have said moving forward. Anything can change. Same thing with the Xbox deals with Call of Duty. Anything can change in those lines. But bringing this back into the FromSoftware Sony interactions, I do not see or want Sony purchasing FromSoftware anytime soon. I think with their relationship with Bandai Namco, that this would just be a net negative for FromSoftware in the long term. Yes, that influx of money from Sony would probably be very, very nice, and having that continued financial backing from Sony would also be very, very nice. But given the fact that they have been a studio that loves to branch out with their publishers, I think having that fluidity is a benefit to this particular studio. It allows them to hand select publishers that are going to help them meet the vision for their games, because they are a very vision-based game studio, and that is something that I don't want kind of neutralized if they do get purchased out by one big publishing agency. Now, with Sony purchasing them up, they might allow them to continue to be multi-platform, but I do not see them allowing them to work with other publishers unless they are publishers within the Sony catalog. This isn't even bringing up that Armored Core 6 has recently been announced for FromSoftware, as being their next major title that they're working on. And for a very long time, that game has been a multi-platform style game. Now, whenever Armored Core was first being released, kind of back in the same era as Demon's Souls, FromSoftware was working with Sony Studios exclusively, so they could backtrack into that. There is that relation there, but I think that thread is super duper fine, that I don't think it's something to actually be concerned about. I don't see them going anywhere but multi-platform for that game in particular. Which again, that game just is getting leaked. It doesn't even have an announcement trailer or anything like that going forward for it. So to think that any kind of a Sony deal moving forward is in the works, I don't think is the case, just simply based on the fact that that IP is in development. And unless they come out and say that Armored Core 6 is going to be a Sony exclusive, that's when the fear sets in. That's when my personal concerns set in, that we are going to lose FromSoftware to the greater gaming scape. I love the idea that FromSoftware, a studio that I am super passionate about, and that many gamers are super passionate about their products, I don't want that kind of fluidity for them to choose where they want their games to be put out to be taken away. And yes, again, Sony could allow multi-platform releases for Sony or for FromSoftware games moving forward, but that fluidity in publisher, I think, means a lot more than what most people would expect. And for anybody that is still invested in the Xbox versus Sony stuff and thinks that Sony needs to make these gigantic purchases or just like strategic purchases to be able to compete with Microsoft, just stop, okay? The console wars are over. Back in the day when you had 3 pieces of plastic and you needed to choose which piece of plastic you were going to play games on because your family could only afford one of them, it made a little bit more sense back then. But since more digital OpenScape ways of playing games are coming out, more subscription services are coming out, the console wars are dead, and people need to get over that mindset. And if you're wanting Sony to continue to compete with Xbox in that realm, it's a fool's notion. Microsoft has way more money than Sony could ever hope and dream of having. If you wanted one to go toe-to-toe, it is not going to end well for Sony, okay? At the end of the day, I could see Microsoft purchasing up Sony straight up before Sony ever had a chance of winning in that kind of a fashion. Moving forward, gaming is hopefully going to become a lot more consumer friendly. And while these big purchases like Bethesda, Activision, and Bungie make me a little bit nervous that there could potentially be more exclusivity, especially on the digital scape, which I think is asinine in itself, the best case scenario moving forward is that these purchases and having like these studios buying up these development studios and being an overarching producer only makes it so that these games are able to be shipped out to more gamers moving forward. I'm hoping that it doesn't go more exclusive and things eventually become less exclusive, because in that kind of a mindset, everybody wins. So please, for the love of God, if you are still a Sony fanboy that is keeping the console wars alive, it's done. We had our good time in the sun, but it is time to move forward for the greater gaming population. Because at the end of the day, whether you play on Xbox, whether you play on Sony, whether you play on Nintendo, we are all gamers, okay? And we should all want what's best for our fellow gamers. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you want Sony to purchase FromSoftware? Do you think Sony's money could be better spent elsewhere for whatever they have planned moving forward? Or do you think FromSoftware, with the big hype on Elden Ring and possible success of Elden Ring, would be better off staying by themselves, just like I do? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We have a lot more Souls-like content moving forward, especially with Elden Ring coming out. Once that game drops, it is on. So thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, much love. Tenna Crew, bye-bye.